Have you ever noticed how two people can stand before the very same mirror and somehow feel like they're living in different worlds? One person leans in, cataloging small problems, thinking, if I can fix this one thing, I'll finally feel right. Another person steps back and breathes, thinking, I can live with this. This is me. Both are human. Both want dignity and confidence. Both know what it's like to walk into a room and be looked at. And yet their choices split wide open. One will call a clinic, the other will carry on. What complicates it even more is that it isn't simply a bank account deciding it. You'll meet millionaires who never touch a scalpel and people making average wages who quietly tuck away savings for years, counting down to a procedure they believe will free them. So what's actually alive inside the mind of someone who never chooses cosmetic surgery? Is it calm self-belief? Is it fear? Is it acceptance? Is it something more layered, something we don't usually bring to the surface because it's tender to touch? Picture this, two friends standing shoulder to shoulder in front of a mirror before a night out. One says, if I could tweak this little part right here, I think I'd finally love my face. The other replies, with a little smile, I already do. Same glass. Same lighting. Completely different inner lens. What separates those two experiences? Psychologists could give you a library of terms, but for our purposes, think of three broad mindsets of people who never go under the knife. Two will feel familiar. The third is the one most people avoid naming out loud because it isn't a story about confidence or serenity, it's a story about reality, limits, and the heaviness that comes with them. And at the end, there's a question, a small thought experiment, that might quietly unsettle you in the best way. It's easy to perform values in theory, it's harder to meet them when a door actually opens. Keep that in the back of your mind as we move forward. The first group are the calmly grounded, the ones who have made a truce with the mirror. They're not blind to asymmetry, to freckles, to the tired softness that creeps in after long weeks or long years. They simply read those details like entries in a journal rather than violations to be edited. A faint line at the corner of the eye becomes a tally of late-night laughter. The subtle fold near the mouth is a memory of a life with expression. A sunspot is a souvenir from a summer where they were outside more than they were on their phone. Their sense of beauty sits in balance rather than exactness. They're not chasing the sharpest angle or the smoothest surface, they want the face that belongs to the life they actually lived. And that kind of confidence, in their view, isn't manufactured in a clinic. It's built in quiet moments. The mornings when they decide not to compare themselves to the stranger on the Explore page, the nights when they log off instead of doom-scrolling someone else's perfection. They don't sprint after every trend because they've outgrown the thrill of being constantly reissued a face by whatever is fashionable that month. Their rituals, if they have them, are gentle and consistent: drink water, get sunlight, wash your face, sleep, laugh, forgive. They're not anti-care, they're anti-obsession. When they do spend money, it's on small acts that make them feel present, maybe a good moisturizer, maybe a hike, maybe a book that softens a harsh inner voice. They've learned that admiration and love are different currencies, likes can spike and crash, but love tends to settle in for the long run. And the voice they're listening to when they look in the mirror isn't the loudest one online, it's the quiet one inside that says, this is me, and I'm allowed to take up space like this. It's not that they think they're flawless, they see what everyone else sees. They just don't translate those observations into an emergency. They're living their life. And their face is coming with them. Then there are the guardians of the self. These are people who could make a change but won't, not out of denial, and not because they've declared themselves perfect, but because they're protective of their original signature. They worry, sometimes in a way that's hard to articulate, that altering a feature might blur a line that matters to them, a line connected to memory, continuity, even recognition. A scar on the chin becomes the chapter where they fell off their bike at 8 and stood back up. The slightly crooked bridge of a nose becomes a family thread: my granddad had this, my aunt had this, and when they trace that feature, they're tracing kin. A wrinkle isn't an error, it's the crease where 1,000 smiles landed. Touch it too much, and you're not just smoothing skin, you're sanding down a fingerprint. To them, the face isn't a billboard, it's a diary cover. There's an inner cohesion, the sense of being the same person in old photos, in the reflection at midnight, in the laugh that escapes them in line at the grocery store. They want to hold on to that continuity the way a musician wants to keep the gentle rasp in their voice, it's part of the music. This doesn't make them sanctimonious. In fact, you'll find many of them are careful not to judge others' choices. They genuinely believe in autonomy, just as they claim it for themselves. They moisturize, wear sunscreen, drink their greens, and book the occasional facial not to remake their face but to maintain it the way you maintain a favorite old wooden table: polish, don't repaint. They're not adversaries of change, they simply want change to be authored by time and experience rather than a design decision. If a health issue arises, they'll see a surgeon without hesitation. But in the realm of elective aesthetics, they draw a personal boundary. Not because they're brave and others are not. Not because they're holding on to some moral high ground. Their stance is humbler and, honestly, more vulnerable. They're afraid of losing themselves, and they're loyal to a face that has escorted them through every season so far. And then there is the third group, the quiet strugglers, the part of the conversation that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. They don't refuse surgery because they've arrived at peace, and they don't refuse it because they're guardians of some sacred self-image. They refuse it because they can't pay for it. They want to change their face. They believe they need to. They scroll past flawlessly symmetrical people and frictionless skin that absorbs studio lighting like velvet, and the mirror becomes a fight they lose in silence. They call it acceptance, because what else is there to call it when the option is out of reach? But under the word acceptance is something heavier, frustration braided with powerlessness. If you look closely, you'll see the small rituals of hope that never quite lift off. They'll bookmark a clinic and then X out of it when it's time to pay rent. They'll run numbers, then erase them, then start again. They'll Google cheaper alternatives and stumble into rabbit holes where the risk climbs as the price drops. They'll save for months and then life will happen: car trouble, a parent's medicine, a pet's emergency, and the envelope empties back into survival. Meanwhile, the algorithm keeps showing them after faces, smoothed and lifted and praised. And so a strange thing happens. They perform "I'm fine with myself" in public because it's less painful than admitting "I'm not okay and I can't change it." This isn't hypocrisy, it's a coping strategy. It's a way to live with dignity inside limits. No one wants to become bitter because the numbers don't add up. But that doesn't erase how sharp the ache can be when you're measuring your reflection against a feed that seems to run on impossibility. Here's the sad truth most people tiptoe around. Sometimes what gets marketed as self-love is actually self-truce. A survival posture adopted because there is no alternative that doesn't cost money you don't have or risk you don't want to take. The choice to accept, in those cases, isn't really a choice, it's the least bruising story available. And yet, even in that, there's a kind of strength, resilience born not of freedom but of endurance. It's not romantic. It's not Instagrammable. But it's real. By now you can feel it, this is not a contest about who's superior. All three paths circle the same hunger. To be at peace with the person looking back at you. The calmly grounded have found a steady rhythm and aren't interested in trading it for a trend. The guardians of the self protect continuity because identity matters to them in a bone-deep way. The quiet strugglers aren't anti-surgery at all. They're boxed out by cost or fear of consequences they can't afford to navigate. Each is moving toward the same destination by a different road, some paved, some rocky. So here's the part that tends to cut through the noise, the thought experiment that tests what we say we believe against what we might actually do. Imagine someone slides a briefcase onto the table in front of you. It's full of money. Not imaginary internet money, real bills, counted out, yours to keep on one condition: it must be spent on a cosmetic procedure for your face. You can't redirect it to debt or vacation or family or charity. You can take it and change something, or you can push it back and walk away with the exact same face you have now and nothing in your hand. Which way do you turn? If you pick up the briefcase and book the appointment, that doesn't mark you as vain or weak by default. It probably says something quieter and more honest. You don't enjoy the face you carry, and when the door opened without the usual financial pinch, you stepped through. It says you're ready for a change and you're willing to endure the logistics and the recovery and the comments because you believe the result will make your daily life feel lighter. It might also say you're tired of catching yourself from your bad side, tired of wincing at a profile shot, tired of feeling a drop in your chest when a photo tag pops up. None of that is a crime. On the other hand, if you close the briefcase and leave the money on the table, that refusal says something remarkable in a world that monetizes insecurity for sport. It says you possess a kind of self-command that can't be bought, a stubborn inner steadiness that refuses to outsource belonging to a procedure. It says you are willing to disappoint the algorithm, to walk past the easier applause, to keep living in a face that may never be crowned by the crowd but feels like home to you. That isn't indifference to change, it's sovereignty over it. And here's the heart of the test. It's easy to declare your principles when the offer is hypothetical, when it's just a comment section or a conversation over coffee. The real measure isn't your slogan, it's your choice when the offer is undeniably real. So be honest with yourself, no performance, no moral theater. If that briefcase were sitting in front of you right now, would you take the money and alter your face, or would you stand up, hands empty, and walk out with the same reflection? Leave it in the comments, plainly, without excuses. If this touched something in you, subscribe and stay with us. We're building a place where your reflection is enough and your story matters.